So welcome everyone. Very good morning. I hope you're having a good conference out here. So very shortly, we're going to kick off this session. And let me do a few quick introductions. My name is Deepak Chauhan. I look after the Google Cloud Business Unit based out of London for EMEA and APAC. It's a dedicated ecosystem unit. And we had the privilege of being the luminary sponsors this year. We are at booth number 1113 for those of you who have not seen us or have not been with us or don't know about us. We've had an exciting journey since the last 3 years since inception, since we formed this unit. Google Cloud Unit at HCL has been the top 2 units recognized not only by analysts, but also by Google Cloud themselves as to be the top 2 units in terms of the ecosystem units that we have established. We work across a number of transformation programs, across some 350 programs that we have delivered globally. And we also are very excited to announce that we have been selected as the Expansion Partner of the Year as of yesterday, and also won a Social Impact Award yesterday. So 2 awards, and this is the 4th award. Successively, in 4 years, we have been selected as the Partner of the Year. So I'm really proud. Thank you. Thank you very much for your support. So without further ado, we'll just play a short video, and then we'll kick off the proceedings. No audio. So no audio, but I think it was self-explanatory. So I have the privilege of having with us Erste Group Bank leadership here with us, all the way from Austria, sorry. I do manage Australia, but Austria is where my heart lives. And as I welcome them on stage, let me introduce David Omani, the CEO of Erste Bank Group, and also Christoph Helm, the CIO of Erste Bank Group. Please welcome them on stage.
Morning, sir.
Thanks, Deepak.
Morning.
So before we kick off, I just wanted to do a quick introduction of our guests here. David is the Group CEO of Erste Group, and he's a self-described IT person. He has been working in the banking industry since 1985, and in the Central and Eastern European region for over 30 years. As a Group CEO, David is leading the development of IT and associated data services to build the best-in-class banking services and experiences for all of Erste's clients across the region. And I've personally seen what he's been doing there. David believes that the adaptation of cloud technology and the responsible use of data will enable the vision of the segment of one, allowing the group to tailor its products and services for each and every individual client. And we'll hear from David in more detail about some of that. Let me come to you, Christoph. And I've had the privilege of working very closely with you, and your passion to drive the whole transformation journey has been infectious, I must say. Christoph is the CIO of Erste Group Bank and Managing Director of Erste Digital. It's the captive IT company of Erste Group. In his role, he is driving the technology innovation of Erste Group and is responsible for the cloud transformation program. Christoph has many years of experience in banking, and before he joined Erste Group, he was working at UniCredit Bank in Austria, not Australia. He believes that technology will help the banks to increase the speed of change from core banking system modernization to customer journeys that are supported by artificial intelligence. And those are some of the very important topics that we'll cover today. So without further ado, gentlemen, I would like to introduce you and ask you to please take the session from here.
Thanks,
David
sir.
Omani.
So, good morning. I think we're lucky to have a morning session. I always prefer to have an alert and bright audience. I want to just tell you a little bit of background about who we are. And I'm going to start with a history lesson. Because Erste Group was founded 204 years ago. Let's put that in context. Napoleon Bonaparte was sitting in St. Helens, and Louis XVI was on the throne in France. George III was 10 years insane, but still the King of England. And James Moore was the 5th president of the US, and we were 40 years away from electing Abraham Lincoln. And we founded a bank. And we founded a bank in order to provide banking services to all in the community. It's grown since then. We're in across Central Eastern Europe. We're number 1 in Austria. We're number 1 in the Czech Republic. We're number 1 in Slovakia. We're number 3 in Hungary, in Romania, in the Czech Republic. And we're also in the countries such as Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia, Northern Macedonia. And the bank has maintained what it set out to do 204 years ago in order to provide banking services across the region to all of the people that need it. Like any long and older bank, we have legacy IT, not still from 1819, but from some years ago. And we'll give you an update today in terms of how we're approaching the modernization of that IT. We're a universal bank, 16 million clients, 55% of our revenues come from retail, 45% from corporate and treasury. Very stable, very, very, very good bank, and a good bank because we're in the right countries and we've got the right business model. And the challenge is now not just to maintain that, but to take it forward. How did the strategy evolve in terms of the IT? 4 years ago, we were here and we were working with the cloud service providers, still trying to understand, what do we do with the cloud? Why should we use the cloud? What's the benefit? We were not clear 4 years ago. Banks in general are not the first movers, but we try to be the first followers. And it's not because we're lazy, and it's not because we're scared, but we do have a very, very intensely regulated environment. And if I just mention data protection, DORA, Cloud Act, EU, AI Act, we have to be very, very clear and very careful in taking these topics forward. And we've got to be very careful in terms of our asset, and why we are successful and we continue to be successful is the trust of the client. So we've got to make sure we have the data protected, we've got to make sure the systems work, we've got to make sure that we can take these items forward. So we very quickly realized cloud can help us, firstly on the standards. So the standard being scalability. I don't think we need to go into that detail. We've understood this and we can use that. The security details that we have in place, we could never afford to generate and develop these on our own. It's like we don't have our data centers because we use data center companies. We use the security aspects in the cloud environment, which are vital, but also developing quicker than we could ever do this. We use it in terms of the technology because there's cloud native technology that is definitely a huge benefit to us. And finally, because, and it's not a cliche, it is all about the people. If we want to get people to work on our technology, they expect us to be able to provide these services, so we work with that and those terms. where are we going? So, 3 years ago, anybody standing on the stage here spoke about digitalization and digitalization and digitalization. Of course, we're doing this. We have a strategy in terms of our technology, always thinking first client impact. How is the client going to use this? How will the client benefit? How do we direct this in the client? So the strategy is mobile first for retail. The strategy is everything available and ready 24/7 to the clients, not just the retail clients, but also our corporates online. And the strategy is standardization of the products where possible through the channels and specialization and advice in our branches. So we double and we dovetail on these. We have a strategy, and I go back to what I mentioned at the beginning about financial health. We started out giving our services and making sure we can provide these services to all our people. Today, the strategy is clearly to be able to enable financial health for our client base. What does that mean? This isn't touchy-feely. This is when the client needs the service, when the client needs the product, we should be able to identify this and we should be able to bring it to them. So we work on what was mentioned at the beginning, the segment of one, and I believe in the segment of one. Banking segments clients. You have retail. In retail, you have mass affluent, private, but we can use the technology available on data, on analytics, on AI, but everything underpowered by the cloud technology to develop the segment of one. The segment of one is that real time we can go to each individual client and provide them what we see are the services necessary. On our approach to cloud, 3 items. Firstly, we have a multi-cloud strategy, multi-cloud service provider. This isn't because we like one or we don't like the other or we don't trust them, but it was inevitable that we would use all 3. And we work with Microsoft, we work with AWS, and we work with Google. And the reason we're using the multi-cloud strategy is to make and benefit from the best of all providers, but also vendors have better setups on different cloud services, so we need to do that. The challenge that we have is to make sure that when we have cloud-to-cloud applications, that this is going to work. So that's one that we're leading into at the moment, and we'll get a little bit more detail on that. On Google, we're working intensively with Google in Austria at a group level and the Austrian level on what we call our IT transformation. As I mentioned, the IT legacy isn't from 1819, but we do have 70s mainframe. It works, why get rid of it? We have older systems which are not available to be developed because we need to be able to bring the services quicker. We need to be able to bring the services online. And we've got the architecture in place, but we need to refactor and redevelop a large scope of our platforms. So we're working with Google on this. And my colleague Christoph will give you an update on that. To round off just then the introduction, I do have a wish to Google. We're working with HCL on the actual transformation program. But my wish to Google is when we're working, we got to work not just as partners, and you're not doing this just once because the banks are regulated everywhere with the same regulations. So let's try to do these things together that we don't have to reinvent these for every client and make sure we get that done properly. On that, we'll come back with a Q&A. We'll give you a chance to ask some questions and not just on the history. And I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Christoph.
Thank you. Thank you, David. And within the next couple of minutes, I want to share with you why we believe cloud will help us in modernization of our IT landscape in order to become faster and react quicker to changes. Because as we all know, it's not the bigger ones that will survive, but it's those ones which will react fast to changes. And I hope in 200 years' time, our group CEO will still be standing here then and speaking about our long history. When speaking about the IT application landscape and the legacy many of you will have, this picture that you see here on the left side may sound familiar to you. It shows a heavily overloaded ship carrying a lot of load. But to say something positive, this ship is also very efficient because given the size of the ship, everything is neatly packed to that. There is no free space. Things are added and attached to that ship in a very efficient way. And probably you will need the captain to change anything. If you lose the captain, you are done. I like this picture because it describes very well some of the areas of our application landscape. It's efficient, but it's not ready to change quickly, and it's even bearing some operational risk. This is why we all look into the left side, your right side, the container ship, where we have really a scalable, fast ship, where we have standardized containers, we can scale, and we can carry much more load in the future. In order to understand that problem better, why are we stuck on that ship and why are we not moving faster, we spoke to our people. We spoke to our IT teams to understand really the problem, because I think cloud is a technology in the first place. We'll come later then to see that it's also changing the organization, but understanding the problem and what problem you want to solve, that's probably a good starting point. So speaking to our people, speaking to the IT experts, we find a couple of interesting problems that we have to solve. You see the first group of people who said, well, there's a lot of manual work we still have with our deployment, with our testing, so we're missing all these automated CI/CD procedures. Then we had people who said there is so much new technology out there, new versions to test, and we don't have the space, the environments to test this. We also have solutions that have quite volatile peak times, workloads to consume in both directions. So scaling up and also reducing them, because if you think about non-productive environments like test environments, they are not used all the time. So being able to ramp them down is also something that we're looking for. And finally, this is probably the most interesting thing and forward-looking thing. It's those business demands that are out there. And we do have our business colleagues who, and we see here on the conference already, AI, Gen AI is the best example that you want to apply immediately. And this would not be possible if you don't have cloud services in-house and you are familiar with these services. So understanding the problem was my moment when I understood cloud can be a solution to our modernization problem. And we have started a larger program, I think it was back in 2021, 2022, and we started with the application assessment. We looked at our application landscape and said, where do we find those applications that I have shown you before? Where do we have those problems? That had two advantages. First, we identified those areas where we have, I don't want to say the low-hanging fruits, but we are gaining the biggest gain. And second, we focus. You can't boil the ocean. We cannot transform everything to the cloud. David mentioned we still have the mainframe. We have a lot of Oracle databases that are difficult to migrate currently. So there have been some platforms that we took out of the scope and ended up finally with roughly 100 applications that we want to migrate. Having that done, having a clear scope, we looked who can help us on this. And I'm jumping a little bit this middle part, and we'll come back to the transformation part in a second. We immediately jumped on, okay, now we understood the problem, let's do it, let's engineer it. And we looked for partners because we understood we are alone, we cannot do this at scale and with the necessary speed. The partners we found is HCL and Google. And at that point, I want to say a big thank you for the support that you are giving us in that journey. The reason why we selected these two as partners is because, first of all, they understood our regulatory environment, and there is still a lot of things to do. Second, they understood our people, that we need to change also the people, we need to work differently. And third, large companies. They have a lot of resources, a lot of capacity, a lot of experience, and this is also what helps us to get faster. I'm coming back now to this transformation part. And when I said before, this was my moment when I understood the problem, this is my lessons learned. We jumped immediately to the execution, which is good, and we built a landing zone, and we will migrate the first solutions this year. But what I would do differently if I would start this project once again, I would start earlier to involve people, to think about these transformational aspects on how this cloud transformation will also change your organization, will change the processes, will change the job roles that you have in your organization. So that's at least 50% of the project. 50% is the technology part and 50% is the organizational part. And that's my personal learning that I want to share with you. Start with this transformational thing, with the mindset thing as early as possible. Not only for the IT, but also for the business people. I want to close with summarizing the benefits that we are measuring and what we want to get out of this transformation program. And this can be grouped in three areas. First, it says increase value for money. Cloud is not a cost-saving exercise. We had a lot of consultants here in the beginning that said you will save 30% of your costs. They are not here anymore. But what we see is that we can get more for our money in making a lot of fixed costs that we have in making them to variable costs. You have seen that we are looking also on those solutions that have peak times that are changing in terms of capacity consumptions. So here cloud will help us to turn our costs more into a variable part. Second, and that's the qualitative aspect behind this first topic, is of course we all know scalability and flexibility. This is something that drives us day by day. We have solutions that are growing 20%, 30% even year on year in terms of capacity consumptions. To keep up with this in a very fast and efficient way, cloud is definitely the solution. And 50% of our solutions have these, or the solutions that are in scope of the migration have this kind of behavior. And last but not least, and this is closing the loop to what I said in the very beginning, why we are doing cloud, because we want to get faster, we want to react faster to changes. It's this time to market. Currently, we see that still quite a high number of our solutions have quarterly deployments and even longer because of the complex architecture that we have, because of the legacy that we have. We are targeting to deploy changes to the solution in less than a month. So on a monthly basis, not to say bi-weekly basis. I'm not saying daily. This is also not working because we still have a hybrid scenario. But reducing this deployment frequency is probably the one thing that at the end will make us faster in the deployment. This is why I think cloud story is modernization, but especially getting faster. And this is the title, Supercharging, meaning charging fast, was a nice fit to our presentation. And with this, I would like to hand over to Deepak again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christoph. Thank you, David, and thank you, Christoph. That was a really insightful session.